I'm going to go right into bullying. So Priya, I would like to address these questions to you. How to handle cultural differences and bullying related to it? How to help them avoid racial cultural difference bullying in schools?
So, it's hard to avoid cultural, racial bullying in school because it happens. And it's important to understand a few things with bullying. Bullying is really driven by sort of a kid who wants power and control, a kid who feels out of control. So, as kind of calm and unflustered as your kid can seem, the better. And so that has a lot to do with parents and children and how they interact and what you're doing in the home and getting them prepared for things like this if they're happening. So like the doctor had just said, you don't want to be the last person who figured out that your kid is smoking weed. It's kind of the same thing here. You want to be on the front line if they're getting bullied. Like, you want them to have a comfortable enough relationship with you that they're telling you that right away. One really big thing I want to get across, because I work with teenagers and bullying all the time, is that as parents, we really want to fix it. Sometimes when we intervene, it gets worse. So if you call the bully's parent and that parent tells the kid, that kid could bully your kid more. If you go tell the principal, all those things, like, we want to get really involved, and sometimes that's actually not the best thing. So the first line is to figure out what's going on, like, how severe is the bullying, how chronic, how long has it been happening? And at that point you can see, okay, do I need to tell a counselor? Do I need to tell a teacher? And always work with your kid on what they want to be done, because your kid will probably tell you, no, I don't want you to talk to anybody. And then you figure out what the next steps are. And then the second line is talking to them about, okay, what's a plan for you the next time this happens? And role playing with kids is a great idea. Like, pretend you're the bully, have them respond to you, have their sibling pretend to be the bully. There's this new concept in school called upstanders, where they're trying to, instead of have kids be bystanders, be kids who are like actively intervening on behalf of kids being bullied. So that's absolutely something to talk to teachers, counselors, and principals about, without even talking about bullying. Just like, is there a program like this at the school? Are you guys actively talking to kids about this? Those are really good things to have conversations with your school district and your teachers about, but also have your kids know their classmates. They can sort of identify other kids that would be helpful to them and encourage them to be helpful to other kids, kind of to have a community of peers that are supportive and helpful to them. And the conversations that we can also have with them about, who are you spending your time with? What are your friends like? Because you want them to have a really good, solid group of friends. If they're being bullied by anyone else, that will very much help them kind of survive that environment. And the last piece I would add is, bullying is much more harmful if the child's ego is already kind of fragile. And that's a place where parents can be super helpful, right? Like, we're the ego builders. Like, that's our job, and like, that's what we can really do. So to kind of interact with kids in a way that helps them build that ego. So if they're coming home and we're sort of criticizing or shaming them or pointing out things that aren't that great, like, why'd you get a B instead of an A? I mean, these are all things that kind of hit at the ego a bit. So figuring out how to talk to kids in a way that's really building them up, where they feel not better than other people, but just good about themselves. Like, I'm okay, I can handle it. I've got my parents, I've got my posse, like, I can go to school and I'm okay, that kind of thing. That'll get you a lot better results than, like I said, than like calling the other kids' parents. I have not seen that go well very often in 10 years of therapy with teenagers. So, but I would love to hear other people's opinions too.
To add to this, I know Dr. Jairaj just answered about substance use, and Priya talked something similar about bullying. So I attended a conference recently by UCSF, University of California at San Francisco, and they used an acronym called PIPE. Okay, so PIPE is prepare, initiate, plan, and execute. Okay, but it's very similar to what both of them already talked about, which is, our first job is to lay the groundwork with our kids, which is to prepare them, right, to prepare them by just having a very open communication with them. There's no good time. There's no best time to start that. It can be any time, as
Okay.
early as possible.
Lorenzi, sorry to interrupt, but can you repeat that pipe again?
It's prepare, initiate, plan, and execute.
Okay.
Preparing is laying the groundwork. We build the relationship with our child. This is that ego building, the cherry, that part, right, where we are basically saying, hey, we are there, we are going to be available for you, we are not going to judge you, but we are there for you and we love you, and we'll be there to whatever you do, even if you mess up, right? And kind of remind them that, they will not be punished for telling you something that you don't want to hear. Like, if it is a teenager saying, I was in a party where there was marijuana, I was in a party where there was alcohol, right? Our biggest job at that point is to not lose our top, right? But to be able to sit down and listen to what they have to say and to see what did the child do with that piece of information, right? But it can be as early as a third grader, Asian American kid who is being called, I have a lot of Pakistani kids who tell me they've been called terrorist, right? A Chinese kid who'd say they've been called chinkus, and with slanted eyes, right? At any time. That's what I'm saying. It can be bullying, it could be substances, it can be some stupid stuff that they did. But our job is we prepare them by being open communication at home. And the second thing is initiate. You initiate conversations about anything and everything, right? It can be, but what it allows us to do is to set expectations. This is what we should do. Hey, did you see the news about all this thing? What's going on? What do you think about it? What do you feel about it? And then discuss various types. If it is a teenager, you can talk about risky situations. If it is a young child, you can talk about bullying and how to keep themselves safe. How are they going to deal with these situations? And then again, talk about your own parenting values, practices, expectations, and then safety over everything, right? So I feel the pipe applies to everything, even when there is no trouble, when there's no bullying, there's no substance use. It may be just a play date. It may be just hanging out for the night with a friend,
Yes.
right? So we initiate those conversations and we talk about, hey, what are the risks involved? What do we have to do? When do you call us? What will you do if you're not able to? Who's the friend you're going with? So everything and everything, right? And you plan everything with the child by talking about it, right? And then finally, when it's time to execute it, you're just available to catch them. If things don't go according to plan, because things sometimes don't go according to plan,